I woke up at 7 months pregnant, and my baby was no longer inside me. That was the first thing I understood. Not my name. Not the date. Not why my throat felt like I had swallowed sandpaper and hospital bleach. Just that my belly was wrong. Too light, too empty. A monitor beeped beside me in a steady, rude little rhythm, like it had somewhere else to be. My left hand had an IV taped into it. My hair was stuck to my cheek. My mouth tasted metallic, and there was a plastic bracelet around my wrist with my name on it. Emma Mallory Whitaker, 31 years old, apparently still alive. I tried to sit up and pain ripped through me so sharply I made a sound that did not belong to an adult woman. It belonged to an animal under a car. A nurse rushed in. "Emma, don't move too fast." "My baby," I croaked. Her face changed. I hated that. Nurses should come with warning labels for facial expressions. "He's in the NICU," she said gently. "Your son is alive. He's early, but he's here." My son, alive. The word alive hit me so hard I almost missed the word early. How early? The nurse hesitated. 29 weeks. 7 months. My son had been born at 7 months because someone decided my life needed more plot and less oxygen. I closed my eyes and pieces came back in ugly little flashes. Rain, the porch light, Vanessa's hand on my wrist, her nails digging into my skin, the wet step, the fall. Her voice low and calm, saying, "You should have stayed out of his life." I opened my eyes. "Where's Ryan?" The nurse glanced toward the door. That was my second warning. My husband was in the hallway, with his ex-wife. Vanessa Cole stood beside him wearing a white coat, her hair smooth, her face pale, a tissue pressed under one eye. She looked like the victim in a perfume commercial. Ryan had one hand on her shoulder. My stomach, what was left of it, twisted. Vanessa looked through the glass and saw me watching. She stepped closer to the doorway. "It was an accident," she said. Her voice shook perfectly. Not too much, just enough to sound human without becoming inconvenient. I tried to laugh, but it came out like a cough. "That's funny. My wrist remembers it differently." Ryan came in fast. "Emma, please. You just had surgery. Don't start." "Don't start," I whispered. The nurse suddenly found something very important to adjust near my IV, which I respected. Professional women know when to become furniture. Ryan looked exhausted, scared, guilty. Not guilty enough. "Vanessa wanted to make sure you were okay," he said. I stared at him, then at the empty curve under the blanket where my baby had been. The hospital had given me gray non-slip socks, as if traction could fix a woman whose husband's ex-wife had just helped send her child into an incubator. "How thoughtful," I said. "Does she do gift baskets too?" Vanessa's mouth trembled. Ryan flinched. "Good." I turned my face toward the window. Chicago was gray outside, the buildings blurred by rain. Somewhere in this hospital, my son was fighting to breathe through tubes smaller than drinking straws. And the woman who put him there was standing beside my husband, crying like she had lost something. I closed my eyes. Not because I was weak. Because if I kept looking at her, I was afraid I would say something that sounded too much like my father. And my father had once been a very dangerous man. 3 weeks before my son was born too early, I was standing barefoot in our River North condo, arguing with Ryan about a crib rail. That sounds sweet now. At the time, it was not sweet. It was me, 7 months pregnant, holding an instruction booklet upside down because my hands were swollen and my patience had left the marriage early. Ryan stood in the middle of the nursery with a screwdriver and the confidence of a man who had never successfully assembled anything more complicated than a sandwich. "I've got it," he said. "You're holding part C." "Yes, part C connects to part F." He looked down. "This is part F. That's part B." He turned the wood piece around. "Maybe it's emotionally part F." I stared at him. He smiled. I hated that I smiled back. That was Ryan's talent. He could turn irritation into softness before you noticed he had avoided the actual problem. He was handsome in a polished, quiet money way, with neat dark hair, soft brown eyes, and the kind of shirts that made people assume he knew where tax documents were. He came from the Whitakers. Chicago money. Old enough to have opinions about silverware. New enough to still talk about investments at dinner. I came from Frank Mallory, a mechanic in Cicero with scarred knuckles and a past nobody discussed unless they wanted the room to get cold. Ryan liked to say I brought edge to his life. I like to say he brought throw pillows to mine. We worked, mostly, until Vanessa started appearing like a subscription I never signed up for. First, it was a text. Ryan, I need the divorce tax forms. Then a call. Ryan, your mother is ignoring me again. Then one Saturday, she arrived at our condo with a baby blanket wrapped in tissue paper and a smile so gentle, I almost felt guilty for wanting to close the door on her hand. Emma, she said, you look beautiful. I was wearing maternity leggings, one sock, and a t-shirt with a yogurt stain on my stomach. Thank you, I said. I've been cultivating this look with dairy. Vanessa laughed. Too quickly. She was beautiful, of course. Women like Vanessa are always beautiful in a way that feels personally organized. Blonde hair, cream sweater, clean nails, no visible pores, probably a credit score that exfoliated. She handed me the gift. Inside was a pale blue blanket. I hope he gets Ryan's eyes, she said. Ryan, who was still fighting the crib, froze for half a second. I looked at him, then back at her. That's very specific, I said. Vanessa touched my shoulder. I just want everyone to be happy. There should be a special alarm for that sentence. Later, after she left, I asked Ryan why his ex-wife knew the baby was a boy. We had only told family. She probably heard it from my mom, he said. Your mom doesn't like Vanessa? My mom doesn't like most people. Fair. But something still scratched at me. 2 days later, Vanessa texted Ryan during dinner. His phone lit up beside his plate. Tell Emma good luck at her appointment Thursday. I stared at the screen. Ryan flipped the phone over. Very smooth. Very stupid. How does she know about my appointment? I asked. He swallowed. I might have mentioned it. To your ex-wife? It wasn't like that. That was another sentence that should come with flashing lights and maybe a small evacuation plan. That night, Vanessa's baby blanket sat folded on the rocking chair. Soft, expensive, wrong. I touched my belly and felt Noah kick. And for the first time, I wondered if Vanessa was not trying to come back into Ryan's life. Maybe she was already inside it. I found out Vanessa had our door code on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are insulting that way. They look harmless. Then suddenly you're standing in your own kitchen, watching your husband's ex-wife pour sparkling water like she pays association fees. I came home early from work because my ankles had turned into 2 emotional support water balloons. The event team at the hotel told me to rest. I said I was fine. Then I dropped a clipboard, bent down to get it, and made a noise that convinced 3 interns I was about to give birth beside a floral centerpiece. So I went home. The elevator opened on our floor. I walked to our door, typed in the code, and heard voices inside. Ryan and Vanessa. I stepped in. Vanessa stood at the counter in a navy dress, holding one of my glasses. My glass. The tall one with the tiny chip I kept meaning to throw away but didn't, because marriage had apparently taken all my decision-making energy. Ryan turned. Emma? Vanessa smiled like she had been expecting me and was only mildly annoyed I had arrived in my own home. Hi, she said. I hope it's okay. Ryan let me in. Did he? I looked at Ryan. With what? Charm? Telepathy? A key hidden under betrayal? Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. I gave her the code a while ago. For documents. For documents, I repeated. Vanessa set down the glass. I didn't want to bother anyone. You came into my home while I wasn't here. Her face softened. I'm sorry, truly. I didn't think you'd mind. That was the problem with Vanessa. She made everything sound like I was rude for noticing. I turned to Ryan. Change the code. Of course, he said too quickly. Today. His jaw tightened. Emma, don't turn this into a thing. I laughed. The baby kicked. Even he had opinions. Great, I said. Should we give her a drawer too, or is the access code already romantic enough? Vanessa looked down, wounded. Ryan sighed. That's unfair. Unfair. The word floated around the kitchen like a mosquito. After Vanessa left, I started checking everything. Email, calendar, shared notes. I am not proud of this. I wanted to be the cool wife, the trusting wife. The woman who didn't Google legal phrases is at 2:14 a.m. while eating cookies over her belly like a raccoon with Wi-Fi. But then I found the forwarded email. From Ryan to Vanessa. Subject, Whitaker Family Trust, updated beneficiary discussion. The body was boring enough to be dangerous. Legal words, future heir provisions, distribution triggers, minor child protections. I didn't understand all of it. I understood enough. Our baby changed something. Money, control, access. I asked Ryan about it. He said, it's complicated. I said, that's what people say when simple would make them look bad. He told me Vanessa had been tied to some old family arrangements from their marriage. He said the baby's birth would update the trust automatically, but nobody was losing anything important. Important to whom? That night I sat in bed while Ryan slept beside me, one hand on my belly, my phone glowing blue in my face. I searched. Family Trust Unborn Child Rights Illinois. Then, ex-wife beneficiary trust baby born. Then can stress make pregnancy dangerous. Then I closed the phone because apparently I had become my own worst search history. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ask your husband what changes when the baby is born. No name, no explanation. Just that. I read it 3 times. Beside me, Ryan kept sleeping and Noah kicked once, hard, like a tiny warning from inside the dark. The night Vanessa came to my door, Ryan was at a family dinner in Gold Coast. That was what he told me. His mother wanted to discuss trust updates. His uncle would be there. Some lawyer named Preston who looked, in my imagination, like a leather chair with blood pressure. I was told to stay home and rest. Doctor's orders, Ryan said, kissing my forehead. My doctor ordered hydration and less stress, I said. She did not specifically ban rich people. He smiled. Please don't start. There it was again. Don't start. Women are always being told not to start, while men are actively building the matchstick tower. I stayed home. Rain came down hard after 8. Chicago rain in March has no romance. It just hits glass, like it wants to speak to a manager. I folded baby clothes on the couch. Tiny socks, tiny hats, tiny little pants that looked ridiculous because newborns have no business wearing pants. I held one pair up and said to my belly, "You understand these are purely decorative, right?" Noah kicked. I chose to interpret that as agreement. At 8:43 the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Vanessa. Hair wet. Face pale. Breathing hard. My first thought was, absolutely not. My second thought was, why does she look terrified? I opened the door with the chain still on. Ryan, she gasped. Something happened. He's downstairs. He wouldn't let me call an ambulance. He said, get you. My brain emptied. What happened? I don't know. He was dizzy, then he fell near the garage entrance. Emma, please. I grabbed my phone from the console table. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. I should have called Ryan first. I know that now. I should have called 911, the front desk, the Pope, anyone with a functional nervous system. But when someone says your husband is on the ground, logic walks out carrying its little briefcase. I slipped into shoes and opened the door. Vanessa stepped aside. We moved toward the stairwell because the elevator was slow, and I was panicking like an idiot in maternity jeans. At the landing near the building's side entrance, I stopped. There was no Ryan. No sound. No one. Just rain blowing in from the open side door and the concrete steps slick with water. I turned to her. Where is he? Vanessa's face changed. It was small, like a light switching off behind her eyes. You really don't understand what you stepped into, she said. I backed up. Get away from me. She reached for my wrist. I pulled back. Her fingers closed hard. Pain shot up my arm. Let go. You should have stayed out of his life, she whispered. I yanked my hand free. My heel hit the wet edge of the step. There was 1 second where I could have been caught. 1 second where Vanessa's hand moved toward me, then stopped. I fell. The pain exploded through my hip, my back, my stomach. My phone skidded across the concrete into a puddle. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't scream at first. Then I did. It tore out of me so loud a door opened somewhere above. Vanessa stood over me, rain on her face. Not shocked. Not enough. She bent down. For 1 stupid second, I thought she was helping me. Then she picked up my phone. Noah weighed 3 pounds and 2 ounces. That was what Nurse Leah told me the first time they wheeled me to the NICU. 3 pounds and 2 ounces. I had owned purses heavier than my son. Ugly purses too. Purses that had done nothing meaningful with their lives except hold lip balm and old receipts. And now my child, my actual child, was behind glass with tubes in his nose and wires taped to a chest barely bigger than my palm. He's small, Leah said, standing beside my wheelchair. Not weak. There's a difference. I held on to that sentence because I had nothing else that didn't shake. Leah Carter was probably in her 40s, with tired eyes, silver hoops, and the energy of someone who had seen every human crisis and still believed coffee could help. Her badge was clipped crookedly. I loved her immediately for that. Perfect people made me nervous now. Noah's incubator hummed. His tiny hand twitched. I pressed my fingers against the plastic. Hi, baby, I whispered. I'm your mom. Sorry about the dramatic entrance. We're usually more organized. Leah looked away, but I saw her smile. Ryan stood behind me, crying, and I hated that part of me wanted to comfort him. That is the problem with love. It keeps showing up after the fire, holding a bucket with a hole in it. I didn't turn around when I spoke. Vanessa grabbed my wrist. Ryan was silent too long. She said, "You slipped," he said. I closed my eyes. Of all the sentences he could have chosen, he picked the one that stood closest to her. She lied. I'm not saying she didn't. I'm just saying you were scared. It was raining. You fell. She told me you were hurt. What? She came to our door and said you were downstairs. She led me there. His face went pale, but not surprised enough. That was when something inside me shifted. What did you know? I asked. Emma? What did you know before this happened? Leah suddenly adjusted the monitor, even though nothing was beeping. Again, professional women understand battlefield positioning. Ryan rubbed his face. Vanessa has been emotional. Emotional women don't usually fake medical emergencies and collect phones from crime scenes. Don't call it that. I turned then, slowly, painfully. Ryan, our son is breathing through a tube because your ex-wife thought my uterus was a legal problem. His mouth opened, closed. A nurse came in carrying a small packet of tissues. Leah took it and handed it to me. I didn't cry, not yet. Then flowers arrived in my room. White lilies, from Vanessa. The card said, "Praying for you and the baby." I stared at it until the words blurred. "Leah," I said. "Yes?" "Can those flowers leave before they start testifying?" Leah picked up the vase. "Absolutely, I don't trust lilies either." An hour later my father arrived. Frank Mallory filled the doorway without moving much. Black work jacket, gray hair, oil under one thumbnail, eyes like winter pavement. He looked at me, then at Noah. Something old passed over his face. Not rage. Worse. Restraint. He walked to my chair and put one hand on my shoulder, lighter than air. "Who touched my daughter?" he asked. Ryan looked down, and that told Frank more than an answer would have. My father had once been the kind of man people stopped talking around, not because he was loud, because he wasn't. Frank Mallory did not need volume. He had silence. He had a face that made grown men remember appointments elsewhere. He had a history in Chicago that nobody explained to me directly when I was a kid. Just lowered voices, locked rooms, men at our kitchen table, and my mother saying not in front of Emma. After she died, he quit. That was the word he used. Quit. As if the life he had lived was smoking, or sugar, or putting too much salt on eggs. He opened a garage in Cicero, fixed transmissions, paid taxes, went to church twice a year, mostly to argue with God privately. He promised me he would never go back. So when he stood outside the NICU looking at my son, I was more afraid of his calm than I had ever been of his anger. "Dad," I said, "don't." He looked at me. "I haven't done anything." "That's not what I mean." His jaw moved once. He understood. Ryan stepped forward. Brave of him. Poorly timed, but brave. "Frank, we don't know exactly what happened yet." My father turned his head. Just that. Ryan stopped talking. Frank's voice was low. "Did she touch my daughter?" Ryan swallowed. "Emma fell." Frank looked at me. I lifted my bruised wrist. 4 faint marks. Vanessa's fingers purple at the edges. Frank stared at them for so long, I felt the room shrink. Then he asked me for every detail. Where she stood, what she said, which hand she used, whether she picked up anything. When I told him she took my phone, his eyes changed. Not bigger, not angrier, sharper. Leah came over and told him he needed to wash his hands before reaching into the incubator later. My father nodded like she had given him a military order. He went to the sink and scrubbed for a full minute, methodical, serious, like he was preparing for open-heart surgery or dismantling a bomb. Leah watched him and whispered to me, "Your dad understands instructions better than most surgeons. He fixes cars. That explains the focus and the emotional unavailability." I almost laughed. It hurt. Frank came back and looked at Noah through the glass. "He's got your nose," he said. "He has a tube in his nose." "Still yours." Ryan tried again. "Frank, Vanessa is unstable. She didn't mean..." My father cut him off. "Son, I've heard better lies from men bleeding into napkins." Silence. Even Leah paused. Frank pulled out his phone. "Dad," I warned. He looked at me. "I'm not going back." "Then who are you calling?" "Someone who knows how to make anger useful." He stepped into the hallway. I heard only one sentence before the door swung shut. "Diane, it's Frank. I need to do this clean." 20 minutes later, Diane Mercer arrived in a gray coat with a leather folder and the face of a woman who billed in 6-minute increments and fear. She looked at Frank. "If you're planning something stupid, lose my number." Frank said, "I'm trying something new." "What?" "Evidence." Diane looked at me, then at my wrist, then toward the NICU glass. Her voice softened. "Tell me everything." And when I did, she said the words Ryan had been avoiding since the moment I woke up. "If Vanessa touched your phone after you fell, this stopped being an accident." Diane moved fast, not movie fast. No dramatic music, no trench coats in alleys, just phone calls, forms, subpoenas, and one printer in her office that jammed so aggressively I briefly suspected Vanessa had paid it. Frank moved differently, quieter. He started with the building. The front camera was missing 14 minutes of footage. Not 13, not 20. 14 exact minutes covering the time Vanessa arrived, led me downstairs and watched me hit concrete. The security company called it a system glitch. Frank called it cute. I had never heard my father say cute before. It sounded illegal. Diane found a neighbor on the 3rd floor whose camera angled toward the side entrance. The video was grainy. Rain blurred half the frame. It would not win awards. But it showed enough. Vanessa stepping close. Me backing away. My arm jerking, my body falling. And then Vanessa bending down, not toward me but toward my phone. When Diane showed me, I felt cold all over again. Ryan stood in the corner of the hospital family room, watching the clip with his hand over his mouth. "Say something," I told him. He didn't. That was becoming his hobby. Frank tracked the maintenance worker who had checked the building cameras that afternoon. His name was Lou. He had a beard, nervous hands, and the kind of work boots that squeaked when he lied. Frank did not threaten him. He didn't have to. He invited Lou to the garage after hours, gave him coffee, and sat across from him under the fluorescent lights while a half-rebuilt engine hung nearby, like a witness with excellent memory. For 8 minutes, neither of them spoke. Lou cracked at minute 9. Apparently, silence is my father's version of a crowbar. Vanessa had paid him cash to disable and reset part of the camera system. She said it was because she wanted to surprise someone. Lou, demonstrating the survival instinct of a spoon, did not ask questions. Diane got him to put it in writing. Then came the phone records. Vanessa had texted Ryan 3 days before the fall. "If she has that baby, everything changes." Ryan had read it. He had not replied. He had not warned me. He had not changed the code. He had not told Vanessa to stay away. He had simply carried that sentence around like a dirty receipt and hoped it dissolved in his pocket. Frank brought me the printed copy. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I read it once. Then again. My hand shook so badly the paper made a soft clicking sound. Ryan came into my room that evening with red eyes and a cup of hospital coffee. Peace offering, apparently. Hospital coffee tastes like punishment and wet cardboard. Appropriate. I held up the message. "You knew she was dangerous," I said. His face broke. "Emma, I didn't think she would." "You knew." "She was angry. She says things. She said if I had the baby, everything changes." He looked down. I laughed once. Dry. Empty. "And then everything did change. Congratulations. Her prediction was medically accurate. Please don't do this." I looked past him toward the NICU. Noah's monitor blinked through the glass. "I'm not doing this," I said. "You did." Behind Ryan, my father stood in the doorway, silent, listening. And this time, Ryan finally looked scared of the right person. Vanessa came to the hospital with Ryan's mother. That was bold. I'll give her that. Some women bring soup. Vanessa brought a witness in cheekbone contour. Eleanor Whitaker walked beside her, stiff and pale in a camel coat, gripping her handbag like it contained the Constitution. She had never liked me much. I was too sharp, too working class, too Mallory. Once at dinner, she asked if my father's garage was licensed, like he was fixing cars in a cave with a stolen wrench. But even Eleanor looked uneasy now. Vanessa held tissues. Again. At this point, the tissue industry owed her a sponsorship. "I just want to talk," Vanessa said. I was sitting in the NICU family lounge with Diane, Frank, and Leah, who was pretending to refill a coffee station that already had enough stirrers to build furniture. Ryan stood near the window, gray-faced and useless. "You shouldn't be here," I said. Vanessa's eyes filled. "Emma, I know you're traumatized, but you're remembering this wrong." There it was. The soft little knife. "You were scared," she continued. "It was raining. I tried to help you. Leah dropped a spoon, very loud, then said, "Oops," with the sincerity of a woman who had done it on purpose. Vanessa glanced at her. I smiled, barely. "You tried to help me by taking my phone?" Her mouth tightened. Eleanor looked at Vanessa. "You took her phone?" Vanessa recovered fast. "It was in the water. I picked it up so it wouldn't be damaged." "That's kind," I said. "Did you also disable the cameras for privacy?" Silence. Frank stepped forward. Vanessa's face changed for the first time since I had known her. Real fear. Not dramatic fear. Not porch light fear. Actual stomach-level fear. She had expected my father to threaten her. I could see it. She wanted it. One wrong word from him and she could become the trembling woman attacked by a former criminal. Frank placed a folder on the table. "I don't hurt people anymore," he said. "I let paperwork do it. It lasts longer." Diane opened the folder. Page 1, the third floor camera still. Page 2, Lou's signed statement. Page 3, payment records. Page 4, Vanessa's text to Ryan. Page 5, photos of my bruised wrist. Eleanor sat down slowly. Ryan whispered, "Vanessa, not Emma. Not I'm sorry. Vanessa. That one hurt, even after everything. The heart is stupid. Mine was no exception." Diane looked at Vanessa. "Police are on their way to take a formal statement. I'd advise you not to leave." Vanessa stood. Frank didn't move. He didn't block her, didn't touch her, didn't raise his voice. He just looked at her like she was a bad part he had already removed from an engine. Eleanor's voice cracked. "Vanessa, what did you do?" Vanessa's face went blank. No tears, no tissue, no performance. Just the woman underneath. "She was going to ruin everything," she said. The room went so quiet I could hear the coffee machine hiss. Leah leaned close to me and whispered, "Well, that's one way to skip discovery." And for the first time in days I almost laughed without pain. Almost. Vanessa was not dragged out screaming. Real life rarely gives you the satisfying version. She was escorted down a hospital hallway by 2 officers while trying very hard to look offended instead of terrified. Her hands shook when she buttoned her coat. I noticed that. I enjoyed it more than I should have. Therapy can deal with me later. Eleanor did not follow her. Ryan did. Only 3 steps. Then stopped. That was Ryan in one image, almost doing the right thing, then pausing where courage should have been. The investigation became official after that. Diane used words like reckless endangerment, evidence tampering, conspiracy, and obstruction. I used words like finally and also what the hell, because legal language is important but sometimes insufficient. Lou gave a full statement. The building turned over access logs. Vanessa's payment showed up through a little chain of accounts she probably thought was clever. It was not clever. Diane called it a paper trail wearing perfume. Vanessa had not meant to kill me, according to her attorney. Comforting. Apparently I was supposed to feel better because she only meant to scare a pregnant woman down wet stairs, fake an emergency, disable cameras, grab her phone, and hope the baby stayed hypothetical long enough for trust paperwork to favor her. A misunderstanding, really. Ryan suffered consequences too, though not the kind that come with handcuffs. The Whitaker family removed him from managing the trust after Diane sent them the message he had hidden. If she has that baby, everything changes. It turned out rich families forgive many things. Embarrassment is not one of them. I filed for divorce from my hospital bed. Diane brought the papers in a blue folder. "No rush," she said. I looked toward the NICU, where Noah was sleeping under blue light, one fist raised like he was already objecting. "I'm in a rush," I said. Ryan came that evening. He stood at my door with flowers. Again, I stared at the bouquet. "Do men receive a manual that says flowers erase felonies, or is this passed down orally?" He lowered them. "I just wanted to see Noah." "No." His face crumpled. "Emma, he's my son. He's also the baby you failed to protect before he had lungs ready for air." He cried then. Real tears, I think. I believed he loved Noah. That made it worse. Love without courage is just a feeling making excuses. "You can go through the court," I said. "Supervised, evaluated, properly." "You're punishing me." "No," I said. "Punishment is what Vanessa is facing. This is protection." Frank stood outside the NICU later, reading a children's book through the incubator glass. His voice was stiff. "Good night, Moon," he read, like the moon owed him money. Leah leaned beside me. "He's got a soothing voice. He sounds like he's warning the moon." Noah moved, just a tiny shift. Then the respiratory therapist adjusted his support. For the first time, Noah breathed several minutes on his own. No machine push, No forced rhythm, just my son. Trying. Frank turned away quickly. I saw his eyes. Leah handed him a tissue. Allergies? She asked. Frank took it. Hospital air. Of course, she said. Very emotional HVAC. I laughed, then cried, then laughed again because sometimes the body stops asking permission. Noah came home after 56 days in the NICU. 56. I counted all of them. I counted alarms, feedings, ounces, oxygen levels, court filings, and the number of times someone told me I was so strong, when what they meant was I had not collapsed in a way that inconvenienced the room. By the time he was discharged, he was still small. But Leah had been right. Small was not weak. He came home in a car seat that looked too big, wrapped in a blue blanket I bought myself, because Vanessa's gift had been donated to a charity bin with the emotional force of an exorcism. I did not go back to the River North condo. Too many ghosts. Too much glass. Too many places where Ryan had said, "Don't start," while something terrible was already starting. I moved to Evanston, into a small apartment near the lake. It had morning light, creaky floors, and a radiator that hissed like an elderly cat with boundaries. I loved it immediately. Frank helped carry boxes. By helped, I mean he carried everything heavy and judged every piece of furniture silently. When he saw the crib Ryan had assembled wrong weeks earlier, he took one look at it and said, "This thing was built by a man with soft hands." He had instructions. That makes it worse. Noah slept in the bassinet by my bed. Some nights I woke up every 10 minutes to check his breathing. I would put my hand near his tiny chest and wait. Up, down, up, down. That became my new religion. Ryan saw him later, through supervised visits arranged by the court. He apologized in letters, voicemails, messages through attorneys. Some sounded real. Some sounded like a man practicing accountability in a mirror. I didn't hate him every day. That surprised me. Some days I only felt tired. Some days I felt nothing, which was almost peaceful. Vanessa's case moved slowly because justice wears sensible shoes and hates being rushed, but it moved. Charges, hearings, statements. Her name stopped floating through rooms like perfume and started appearing in documents with numbered exhibits. She lost the Whitakers. She lost the story. That mattered to her more than anything. Frank did not go back to his old life. He kept his promise. Mostly. He did use old contacts to find truth, but he handed everything to Diane. No broken bones, no midnight visits, no whispered threats in alleys, just evidence. Sharp, clean, patient evidence. He became a terrible grandfather in the most beautiful way. He taped diapers crooked. He warmed bottles too carefully. He bought Noah a tiny black leather jacket that made my premature baby look like the world's smallest bouncer. "Dad," I said, holding it up, "are you recruiting him?" Frank shrugged. "Kid needs options." One evening, months later, I found him asleep in the rocking chair with Noah on his chest. The TV was on mute. His hand covered Noah's back, huge and scarred and gentle. I stood there a long time. I used to be afraid of the world my father came from. I still was. But when darkness came for me, he didn't drag me back into it. He brought a flashlight. My father came from a violent world, but the most dangerous thing he ever gave me was proof. And proof did what revenge never could. It let my son and me live free.